What's going on, advocates? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me is the Unk. The Unk is in the building. Mr. BMH himself, Mr. Let's Go. I got a few other nicknames, but I won't share them because they was his older monikers back before certain things happened. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm good, sir. Just appreciate you, just inviting me out, man. And you know how we get down, Reg. I'm just excited to, just work with you and just tell the people what we do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So for those who don't know, and I'm trying to go back and get the episode now, but Unc was on the podcast. Douglas Reed, was on the podcast a while ago, maybe last year, and I'm gonna locate the exact episode because it's and maybe I'll get to it when we get down in there, so you can go back and listen to his journey and everything. But it's been a ride, man. It's been a ride. February 25th, so episode 53. You can go back to listen to Brother D Reed's episode and check out his story and his journey that led us up to today. But today we're going to talk about something we've been doing for the past 2 years. I don't know if you all have heard me mention it. I know I probably slightly mentioned it, but I'm gonna do it more often because it's a additional space to after the podcast. After you don't listen to the podcast, you can go and join this group. We are co-facilitators of King's Corner, which is a mental health support group for men that's under the umbrella of the organization that we both are a part of called Black Men Heal. Did I do a good job of describing that?
Done an excellent job. Matter of fact, I'm still in it, brother.
And I just realized this whole time we was talking that I don't even have my mic plugged in. So you could tell I'm rusty. Like I don't even got the mic ready. Like I'm off key, but tell them a little bit about King's Corner.
Oh man, well, King's Corner, like you said, under the umbrella of Black Men Heal. Actually, the involvement around it was, how we got so many applicants for to receive the free therapy through Black Men Heal, right after the death of George Floyd. And we came up, our minds came together. We talked about what we could do. So we said, you know what, let's just create a Zoom link, have some brothers come in, they want to express, how they feeling. And then we start bringing in hosts to actually talk about different subjects that affect Black men. I remember the first couple I think we get maybe 10 guys, 15 guys. We was like, yo, man, we're going to do this every Sunday. Like, but then, and I appreciate you, just our teamwork and how we work together, how we was pushing each other. We stayed, the discipline, we stayed consistent with it. 2.5 years. Now we're averaging 40 guys in the group. With you, we just came back. Thank God you let us use your helicopter. We just came back from Chicago. Thank God for your helicopter, man. And that one day, Reg, I'm speaking it to existence, the helicopter and all the planes. But we just been in this space, man, and it's been so rewarding to go out and touch men and let them know that they're accepted, they're acknowledged, and the real talk, like they are loved, man. Oh, I can't hear you, Reg. Maybe it's because of the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Hear you now, sir.
Now I can't hear you. Look at that, man. See, that's what happened when you when you hooking up stuff late in the mid interview. You can't get nothing done.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Does it sound clear now? All
yes,
right.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, it's been an amazing journey because when I first started with King's Corner, and again, you can go back and listen to Unc's episode of like. We said we call each other Unc and nephew. So if you hear me say Unc more than anything, it's because that's just the dynamic. But when we first started King's Corner, or we're starting the King's Corner group, it wasn't something that I was fully committed to because I've never done something of that nature. And when I say that, I mean like a consistent support. I ran support groups. It was one-offs here. I got to kind of pick when I do it. It wasn't wasn't something that I was consistently doing. I know your background with running youth basketball and church, being in the church, and then other things you've done with being in the military, high ranking military. So you are used to leading groups of just groups in general, but men and boys specifically. And I remember first starting out that a couple of them I just was missing. I ain't gonna make it. And again, that must be the military the background in you, the discipline to continue on. But then I remember just noticing that if we stayed disciplined, we showed up for the men, and we showed them that we showing up. We showed up for the men, and they showed up for us. And we tell them each and every week that y'all make King's Corner the space that it is because y'all give us something to show up to each and every week. So I do thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. And, by us both of us going through Black Men Heal, like every week that we did that, I mean, that was a healing process. We were getting healing inside King's Corner. So many revelations were being dropped and moments to share. We laugh, we cry. I mean, there were moments, man. So, like you said, man, I thank you for sticking with me and sticking with King's Corner and the organization, and we just rolled this thing out, man, and look what it has evolved to today.
Yeah, and what some people may not know, and we discussed it, like it started in the midst of the George Floyd outcry and people wanting mental health support, and then the system not being prepared. And so again, Unc said it, like we created this space, but it also was spawned during the pandemic. Like, and within the pandemic, we couldn't touch each other, we couldn't reach each other, and when we started to get the restrictions lifted, this is where you get the King's Corner tour. But before I get into that, I want to put up some old stats. Now, this was in June. I want to say May, June. This was the stats for King's Corner. Now, does anything stand out that it needs to be upgraded? Because I feel like these are old stats. Like, I feel like we're well over 2,000 men globe silver. Like, what do you see when you see these stats? Because these stats are phenomenal. And for those who are listening, I'm putting up the stats because I know some of the people not watching on YouTube. But the stats are 2,000 men globally served, 600 men in our private Facebook group, 100 plus weekly KC sessions, and then 30 to 40 men on an average weekly. Any of these stand out that need to be upgraded?
I would say the men we have serviced globally definitely need to, because I know that had expanded. And then, maybe, well, like you got 100+ weekly King's Corner sessions. Like that's, we're rocking 2.5, 3 years. So that's, maybe up that joint to like 150 plus. But, but I mean, just looking at the numbers, period, man. Is just life changing for me, man. And just looking at it, like that's the kind of impact that we've been making over these weeks. And we just show up, and next thing you know, we in 2.5 years. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, and I was just telling when we was on tour, like this the longest job I've ever been at. Like, you know, millennials don't stay at jobs long. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I was working at a health center for a little bit, but I still was always with Black Men Hill. I was still doing that part time, and then I left the health center to go full time because it was something that it kept calling me, especially with King's Corner, especially just what we're building and what we're presenting and leaving within men and the men that leave. And it's just a phenomenal way and we don't, this is not a how can I say, embellishment on, like, when we say globally served. I mean, we had brothers from New Mexico, we had New England, United Kingdom, Canada. Like, it's been brothers that was in Cali that stayed up, that got up early, and it just was a lot, man. And that impact has really been globally like certified.
Yes, sir. I mean, totally agree, man. And we continue to do it. And I don't what the song say? Ain't no stopping us now.
Nah, and again, going back to uh virtual turning into a live presentation, I was unsure how it was going to turn out last year when we first went there, because it's easy for brothers to get uh, on a Zoom link. You kick a link. Have some brothers don't even come on camera, so they can be mobile. They don't have to be in a safe space. How was you feeling before we even went on tour last year?
I mean, just like you said, I know we wanted to, really get out to the couple cities that we went to, like, of course, Philly and Richmond and New York. Those were, the brothers that were really supporting us. Of course, it was globally, but that was I guess you would call like our Northeast region. And we wanted to go out there and touch these brothers, let them know that we appreciate them. But there was some uncertainty because we didn't know exactly how that was going to pan out. We didn't know who was going to actually show up, and then we didn't know. We had an idea of what we would talk about, but still, that really didn't have, like I said, we'll discuss it, but it didn't really have the structure that we have right now. So, but we wrote it out. I mean, we wrote it out. I mean, even once we got finished last year, we went back to, how they say, we went back to the drawing table, wrote, did some brainstorming, did a couple things, and we just worked it out, man.
Yeah, and it is one of the amazing things that I was able to realize that also helped me stay dedicated to was that when you meet brothers that you've been talking to only online for so many years, it instantly taught me about online dating now. You know how people is like, how you find love online and you never bet this person and you long distance relationships and da 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 da. When we meet these brothers in person, it feel like you know them because y'all done had so many conversations every week, every Sunday at the same time, and you know what they going through with their wives, you know what they going through as a parent, as a father, like, and the situations they happen. And I just remember meeting one of our brothers, D Rose, in New York, and I was like, man, I felt like I knew him forever, not realizing you kind of do because you hear him sharing in the space often.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was the same way. Like it was like, when you see them, I always get the response. People be like, "Yo, I didn't know you was that tall." Well, bro, I didn't know you was that short either. But you know what I mean. But now you get the response, like you said, like, "Oh man, I've been knowing you for years." But then it's like, no, that was only virtually. Like you said, with the online dating, when that stuff first started, you're like, "Yo, man, how you gonna fall in love with somebody, on the internet or whatever?" And that's what we have, man. We have real love and respect for these brothers, man. And then when we see them in person, it's like, wow, man, it is, I put up even on our IG thing, like it is an honor to know these guys, to share that space with them and even learn more, man. And, we just been fortunate.
Yeah, and the last year title of the tour was Hill Men, man. And to see the translation of like how we were able to capture the, like how you talked about earlier about brothers was crying, the up and down, the happiness, the camaraderie, the fellowship. For that to translate into in person, man, I feel like you really do got to build like a foundational, like something within each other for that to transition into there, where we get into these spaces in New York or we get in these spaces in Virginia, and these brothers are being showing up and being their vulnerable self, and they trust us with that space. And that I don't take for granted, because not men barely don't even want to share with their wives, and they come into the King's Corner space all the time. Like, I don't even tell my regular friends this, let alone the spouse, and I'm sharing it with y'all. And it's an honor, like you said, to be able to get into these spaces and they trust us with their vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing about it, though, I think is, even in our virtual space, it's about us being, transparent, the vulnerability, but more importantly, man, it's about that being authentic. You know what I mean? They, even in our space, and then when we meet them in person, like you said, there may be we were like, wow, but we're still the same person. You know what I mean? Even as we go through this tour, like we're not putting on no television act or some act. Like this is us, man. And I think even with that, like they feel it through the screen when we talk. But then in person, it's like, yo, you guys are the same cats, man. Excuse me, Ray, that's a little old school, but you guys are the same dudes, man. You know what I mean? Like y'all truly are authentic. And I think that, and even our generations, I'm the baby boom, you're the millennial, like the different, difference of opinion and all that. And we respect each other's opinion. We never downgrade. Like we may not agree, but we respect each other's opinion. And then even in that space, we show these guys a respect in which they need, like we need, So that's a big part of it as well.
before I transition into the new tour, and I'll give you time to think about it while I share my answer, what were some of the biggest lessons you learned from this tour going into the next tour, or from the Hill Men tour going into the Black Men Need Hugs tour? And the reason why I asked that is because one thing I realize is that we have to do a better job in tapping into those brothers that we already connected with. Like we know brothers in the city that we go to, but we don't, uh, you know, we just almost assume that they know what's going on, as opposed to like, yo, bro, I'm coming into your town. Like,
Mhm.
I want to see you when I get there, and make sure we even go to lunch. Like, we got to hang out with one of the brothers that come into our space all the time. That's one of the lessons I learned. And another one I learned is you got to tap into that city when you go into that city. And we did a great job of that when we just left Chicago recently, where we tapped in some of the monumental places in there, the Navy Pier, the coffee, mental health, and hip hop shop. Like we was able to tap into some of them staple pieces. And so one of the things that I want to do moving forward is to make sure that we tap into the culture and the community of that city. So for I asked that for you, what's one of the lessons you learned just being on this tour in general so far?
One of the lessons, well, one is how much is needed. How much is needed for us to stay connected, um, and then just being able to go into these cities, man, because we all going through something. But to share our stories, uh, even going to the, I mean, you said it actually. Like, who would ever thought, man, we would be going on a tour talking about black men need hugs. Like, we talking about hugs. Like, what? You better get away from me, bro. I'm talking about I need a hug. You know what I mean? But so that just showed me how much is needed. Like, not only from the cities that we go through, but in the cities, in our country, and like worldwide. Like how much is needed, man. So that's been my biggest thing, man. Is just how badly is needed, and especially within our community, the black community, definitely.
Yeah, no, that's such a fact. And I think excuse me, one of the things that I'll add to that is we don't recognize how much, and that actually goes right into Baltimore, and how I think I shared early on at my 100 episode where I was sharing how vulnerable I got in Baltimore, because of not realizing how much we needed it. Like you don't know what you need until it's presented to you. And so it wasn't realized how much I needed it in that time period, and being with my sons being there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go back to episode 100. You can check that out. And knowing that these brothers was willing to show up if you give them the space to show up. And I think that goes back to Blackman Hill's start. That goes to the start of King's Corner. Even with the tours, like give them something to show up to, and they'll show up. You might gotta kind of pull them a little bit, but they will still show up because it's like, oh, this is feeding my soul. This soul food is feeding me, and I definitely think that it's a necessary tool within our community, that regardless of if we are facilitating it or leading it, that it needs to be always happening in some capacity.
Yeah, and then if I could add one more thing, man, the fact as far as everything that's happening in our communities, gun violence, all the negativity as far as how we are labeled. You know what I mean? As a black man, they fear black men. But the thing about it too is how it's needed for us to speak life into these brothers. Like they appreciate that, to speak life into them, to encourage them, to motivate them, and as we motivate them, we inspire ourselves, which gives us that additional energy, man, to keep doing it, to be disciplined, to be consistent with this thing. And just, and I don't, I see the private jet being rented to take us from city to city, but no, but just how badly it's needed, man, and continually to encourage our brothers.
Yeah, so with the success of the first tour and not realizing the need, we decided to keep going on the tour, and then some new cities this year. So in 2021, we went to New York, Virginia, and then Philly. Did I miss one? New York, Virginia, Philly.
Uh,
I think that was it.
that was it. Because we
Yeah, and then
circled
this
back to
year,
Baltimore.
yeah, this we were supposed to go to Baltimore, but we didn't do it. We ran out of time. So Baltimore was first up on this year's tour in 2022, and as of this recording, we have went to Baltimore, Atlanta, and Chicago, and then we coming home to Philly. So if you in the building for Philly and you listen to this and you're a woman, and we always say it every episode, I'm gonna get it this time, D Reed.
You made it up.
Queens, tell a king, kings, bring a prince, and please let them know about this Black King's Corner Black Men Need Hugs tour that's in Philadelphia. I'll put the link to the registration in the description, but we would love to see you in person and fellowship and get to know one another, and just it's free food, it's free self-care stations, we got the massages, we got the fellowship, just the bringing together, and especially like you just said, Unc, in the community of gun violence and um, fatherless homes and disrespected spouses and all of those different things. This is just a moment of healing. For these 2 to 3 hours, you get that moment of healing, and it can charge you up during the week, and just make you feel fulfilled in that space. So please come out and check out the King's Corner Tour. Black Men Need Hugs. Did I do good, Did I do good?
Oh, you nailed it. I mean, that's why, and that's why I love working with you, man. And we just carry this thing out, man. So you definitely nailed it.
So going into a little bit of it, we can't give y'all everything, but we can give you a snippet of what we are talking about with the Black Men Need Hugs tour and the reason why we came out of it. Well, before I get into this, the objective, so y'all can see that and see what we talk about in the space. This Black Men Need Hugs tour was birthed out of a conversation of a King's Corner topic. Last year, shout out to James Ellerby, a therapist for Black Men Hill and King's Corner host. And he broke this thing down about hugs, which we'll get into in a bit. But you never take into account how deep this thing goes, and I think uh, we take for granted the value in a hug and what it represents and what it means. So what was it when you first heard that stuff? Because I was not expecting that. Black Men Need Hugs was something that the team came up with way before the King's Corner sessions, and it was just like, you know what a black man need? Just a hug. And it's a simple form of like just show him some love. But when James came in and broke that thing down into different things, what was your thoughts behind that?
One was the fact that it's something that I do. I give a brother a hug. I mean, I've always being in the church, whatever, uh, always did it. But then when he broke it down to better explain the even the reasons why and what they meant, the different types of hugs, I was like, yo, that's deep. And then we got into the other aspects of it, but just that hug alone, man, and that's what it represented, like that love, the love that we have for these brothers. We don't even have to say it, man. So we talk about affection, not from an affection of a standpoint, from a woman, but an affection from a standpoint to a father, son, brother to brother, uncle to uncle, uncle to nephew. All those things came into existence. And then we recognized the value, because the response that we did, we had to do a part two. Remember, we had to do a part two, though, because brothers was like, yo, and even one of I think we posted on social media, even a soldier of mine who's actually white, saw the little clip that we did about the hugs, and he was like, I didn't know. We didn't, I didn't tell him, but we was like, we didn't know either.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it was like, yo, and it's right. And that's when we say, you know what? We got something here. We got something we got to bring to these brothers, man. And we work, diligently with the other aspects of it, man. But it was just so rewarding and so powerful, man. Like it felt like, we had to spread the good news. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now and then we got the hugs down. So thanks James from the hug part. And then we like, all right, that's the name of the tour. We're going on the Black Men Need Hugs tour. All right, cool. We're gonna talk about hugs. We're gonna break the hugs down into the different things, and that's what the tour is gonna be. Then we started to go on tour around June. Unc came to me about April-ish, beginning of the year, spring year. He like, yo, Reg, think we should talk about this head nod. And I don't know if the handshake was there yet, but we was like, yeah, we're gonna talk about the head nod. I'm like, all right, I'm trying to add this in there. This gonna be it's gonna throw off the whole hug concept. And it's gonna just make everything just not be organized. And then when you start digging deeper into the head nod, it's like, wait, this is right in alignment to some of the things we talk about. And I think that talk about that part of the head nod and what spoke to you within that.
Well, I mean, so we, like you said, we had the hugs down. That shows that love. And I was just thinking, so how do we get there though? You know what I mean? Like we had a hug, but how do we get to that hug? The hug represents the love. But so now it's like, yo, what is, but we acknowledge each other. But how do we acknowledge each other? We acknowledge each other by the head nod. Now, what we discovered was, and even I know these people on this podcast, you don't know the significance of a head nod till you get brothers from different. I mean, we discovered from going from city to city, and I always say we checking the pulse, but you never know that the representation of a head nod till you start traveling from city to city. You start talking to brothers, from different generations, and you like, yo, man, this a whole class in itself, And then what we do in the space, man, we really get into depth as far as what the head nod is, and of course, even the explanation of it and brothers is. Viewpoints around it. Just like we say, we respect their opinion, so there's no wrong answer. You know what I mean? There's no wrong answer on how they catch that, how they acknowledge somebody else. Ain't no wrong answer.
Nah, that's a fact. And the head nod, again, to some people, and I should play a clip, but I won't because I don't want to give it away. I ain't gonna give it away. That's intellectual property. I'm learning these different things. So we play some clips and some videos to break down that head nod and give some more definition, and like Unk said, we go into some more depth. But not even realizing that the head nod had such a significance, and it's something that we all do. And you know what I don't even think we realize the significance of that acknowledgement in the first place, and how in depth and so much communication is within that just one simple move. That's that nonverbal, and how much that translates to the person. And we, again, like you said, we go into depth. You got to come to the King's Corner session down in Philly, man, to get the rest of this. And please, if you're an organization or whatever and you're listening to it, we can bring this into the space as well and just do a mini version of this for the organization, because it definitely is some nonverbal communication and some things within that I think a lot of individuals do, but they don't acknowledge within the space. So we definitely can break that down further. But where did the handshake come from? I don't remember how the handshake came above.
I guess, actually probably, dealing with military. One thing, I was a drill instructor in the military, and, when we teach, even as an instructor, the military does a great job in step by step by step. So we kind of went in reverse order, what they say, the reverse planning. So now we got the hub. Now we're going back reverse. So now we got the acknowledgement, the head nod, the acknowledgement. So what's the next step? Like, if I greet you, and we got clips on it, if I greet you and I don't know you, I give you the head nod. So then, let's say I see you more, or we starting to come, feel a vibe out each other. So what's the next step? Then I got to give you the handshake. Same thing. We learn something about that handshake and what it represents. We learn about different parts of the, different cities, what it represents. And then we know another part of the handshake as far as the history of it. So now we're really getting into this depth as far as what this is. But once again, it was step by step by step. I mean, you always dropping the knowledge on me, because now, I'm thinking, because now we go from a nonverbal. I mean, like you just said, that's what we got to talk about after the podcast, because now we're talking about the nonverbal now. You know what I mean? So we consistently are not only educating these men and even young men in this space, but we're consistently educating ourselves. Like, it don't stop. You know what I mean? And it don't stop. And it gives us that, that energy, like, yo, this is, and we learn everywhere we go.
Every city.
Every city is a different pulse. Like, yeah, yo, come into space, man. You make friends, drop this thing soon, man, but they could come into the space, bro.
Yeah, so I feel like Unc came with the head nod and the handshake, right? And so he give me this. The Unc got the vision. He always got the vision with certain things. So now it's for me to like package it up and give it something to it, so that way we can present it to the team and present it to the world, and get it in the space. And so when we came up out of that, I came up after I got it all together, was the 3 H's of male vulnerability. And when we came with that, it's like, it makes sense. Boom. It makes sense of that's how we show our vulnerability to one another. We greet you through the head nod to show you that acknowledgement. The handshake is a look. And one thing I always try to stress when we share this, with each level of Black male vulnerability, you get a little bit closer and closer. So the head nod is nonverbal. We ain't touching. We ain't got to do nothing. And we still giving each other, showing love to each other. The handshake is a little bit closer. We getting together. We embracing. We actually, and therapists can talk about that feel of touch and how that represents, and people need that skin to skin. And then last but not least, the hug, and how that full embrace. And we can actually get into that with the hugs, because again, James put it out there to the folks, so I don't feel bad of like not putting it out here to the Black mental health community, the podcast community, and just going into the hugs, man, and how in depth that does. We got 3 hugs that we all do, and I'll say to James Ellerby's credit, and I got to get him on the podcast. When he seen me and we talked about hugs in that first session, he gave me that straight up full embrace. Yeah. And he was like, no, I'm going to give you that strong dad, like, I love you, brother hug. So with the 3 types of hugs, you got the side hug for those who are listening. And the side hug is one of gratefulness, glad to see you, not sure of our relationship or if this is sincere. Then you got the half body embrace, which is, I have some love for you and I miss you like a brother. Like, I know you a little bit more than we knew each other last time, but I really do miss you in that space. And then the straight up full embrace is, I miss you, I love you, we share a depth of a relationship that is beyond the surface. We got some history together, we family, and if we only friends, I look at you like family. So that's the 3 levels of hugs. And when it comes to hugs, talk to me. What does all this do for you, man?
I mean, like I said, we take it like we started educating, man. You know what I mean? This is the change for the culture. Some of the things that we talk about is what's being missed in our communities. The fact that, the OG ain't, he ain't doing this thing in the community no more. The young boy is like, yo, I'm tired of hearing that, OG. You singing the same song, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But when we do this, when we take them from the acknowledgement with the head nod, the acceptance with the handshake, and then the love and respect with the hugs, we educate. We taking it our place of vulnerability where we can trust each other. And one thing that is hard for a man to do is to trust another man. Maybe some things that happened in his life, maybe didn't have that relationship with his father or his family, or just, even within his neighborhood or the hood, you know what I mean? But now we're saying, like, it's okay. And then like we say, like, it's okay not to be okay. So even if you in this space, brother, like, we feel that, come sit with us for me. You even as we say, I know we solicit feedback when we in the session, but even in our virtual, like, you don't have to say nothing, man. Even if you just got a listening ear, that's where that wisdom come in, Reg. Even if you just listening, bro, because we know once that wisdom drops in you, you're gonna spread it. You know what I mean? So you're gonna spread it. Every city that we've been, brothers has been blessed. Like, yo, I didn't even think about it that way. Okay, you didn't think about it that way. So now we want you to go back out into the community and start talking about it. Not only just for King's Corner to come out and be in this space, but start educating the different generations. Start educating the young boys. Start educating the OGs that start to see things in a different light and don't want to respect the younger generation. Because now we all in this joint together. You know what I mean? We about moving forward, moving our culture forward, moving Black men forward, because only thing society wants to say is, yo, we fear you, we don't trust you, you're no good, all these stereotypes that we have. And, even as we go back, you constantly been beating us down. Now we're not taking it no more. You know what? Our fight back now is what we see and what we do. It's not all about the guns and the violence. Now we want to speak it into life because we know that our words have so much power.
Woo! Tune in to the King's Corner every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern on blackmanhill.org. Come to the King's Corner tour in Philly if you're in the area. Is it October 1st? Let me make sure I got the date right. October 1st. If you're in the area, man, and 11 to 3, please come out and support. The link it will be in the description of the podcast. The link is on the blackmanhill.org website. If you're not following Blackman Hill, please go check out the links there. And last but not least, I'll go over the session objectives because Unc just said it, right? So I don't need to really go into too much detail. But if you need some different words of listening to it, the objectives is simple. We're going to go over the 3 H's of black male vulnerability in a little deeper detail, give it in more context. D-Reed, Unc said it. We shifting the negative perception of black men. We're not going for it no more. This is not the one way we look. And this is not how we only operate. We do have different things that don't make us all the same. Masculine pressures are being strong and not showing emotions. This is the most emotional space that I've ever been. Again, if you listen to episode 100, it was the first time I cried in a room full of men. This is how vulnerable I got in that space because I allowed myself that I was going to show emotions. I allowed myself to not feel strong. I allowed myself to be able to say, hey, I don't got it all together. Hey, I do miss my father's love. Hey, I'm not the best father to my kids and I haven't been able to give them hugs because I don't know what it looks like. And so this space is intentionally set for to take that pressure off of being strong and not showing emotion. And last but not least, giving a different lens of empathy on black men and making sure men are viewed as, hey, we have emotions. Hey, we do feel vulnerable. Hey, we do feel not appreciated, feel not acknowledged, not accepted, not loved, and we do have these different viewpoints of ourselves and perspectives of ourselves that not often too many times we get to share with one another. And so again, please come out and support because we would love to see you. You got any final words for this episode for the people?
Nah, man, I know this one man, this guy, wise philosopher, bro. Young brother, man, wise philosopher. He says you got to take care of yourself physically, but make sure you take care of yourself mentally as well. Reggie Howard.
That sounds like a wise philosopher, man. On that note, please share this podcast, share this episode, share a quote that you heard on Apple Podcasts, share this episode with somebody, share the King's Corner information, share the Blackman Hill information. Just let the brothers know to be in the space. And as always, look, I'm getting them confused with King's Corner. I'm getting everything confused. Ladies, tell a king. Kings, bring a prince and come through, man. We would love to see you. And last but not least, always remember that this podcast has never been about being a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.